Welcome to another episode of Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor,
I'm Shawn DeWeird.
And I'm Matt Jones.
and everybody is a little, I don't know, would you say a little sleepy, a little
Well,
tired?
Andy, you're the only one that didn't lose an hour of sleep on Sunday. So you can just take that as you will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna go with like weary and mildly rageful at Andy. Just
But you know what? Okay, for us in Arizona, where we don't do any adjustment, there's somewhere else they don't. Is it Indianapolis that they don't change the time or something like that?
it's not Indiana. Indiana adjusts their time. It's
They
just
do.
it's
There's,
Hawaii. Of course, it's Hawaii because why do you need to change the time in paradise?
well, the crazy thing is because working in media, you're booking interviews, you're looking at people are contacting you. Go, okay, what time do you want to have them? And then you have to like do the math. Oh, where are they? And then you get this math to do. Like I was trying to find out the time for you, Shawn, because you're 3 hours ahead now. But I was trying
correct.
to think, are you in that area? There's one area where it's only 2 hours ahead, and I was trying to figure out where it is.
So we are the furthest west county in Indiana that is in Central Time.
Mm, all right,
So if I drove 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to the west, I'd be in Central Time.
right. That's weird.
That's how close we are. And then if I
Right.
drive north 2 miles, I'm in Michigan. So I'm kind of in a weird little trifecta. But yeah, Indiana's a weird, like most of it's Central Time, but some of it's Eastern Time, and it's kind of a weird mix. But
Right.
I have coworkers that live in Central Time. We
Right.
have staff that live in Central Time, and they drive, 40 minutes to get to work, but then they're also losing. It's so weird. I don't know how they do that.
Is it better the other time of the year for you guys? I mean, when the time adjusts, because you gain an hour, right? I mean,
Fall back, spring forward.
yeah,
So
yeah. Is it better when you fall back?
I,
Yeah.
over the
Oh,
years, I worked overnights during most of that time, so it's like you just worked an extra hour.
right. Yeah. I kind of trying to remember because I worked in radio in California where we'd have to do adjustments, and you always think I felt like I was getting ripped off an hour. Always thought something.
The thing that really frustrates me right now is getting my kids back into a routine.
Oh
You
yeah,
don't think you don't think an hour makes a difference
but it
until
does.
your kids are up at 5 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. or vice versa. So just
Wow.
plays havoc with their sleep schedules and
Oh,
See, I've got 3 dogs and 2 cats, and time is a human construct. So yeah, we spring ahead, and they're like, "Hey, hi."
feed me.
Have I mentioned how hungry I am? And I'm like, well, you're standing on my chest and the sun's not up. So I had some inkling that there was something going on. Our cat, for the first time ever last night, one of our cats, Luz, at 2 a.m., decided to stage a protest and took her metal food bowl and just started chucking it around our bathroom.
How nice of that cat.
And my wife, God bless her, she got up, got up, put the bowl back in, looked at the cat, was like, what are you doing? 2 hours later at 4 a.m., I guess one protest wasn't enough because now she's throwing it across the room instead of just like drop
Yeah.
it, pick it up, drop it. She's flinging it across the room. So
The
my
cat
wife has,
got the reaction, so now it knows.
and
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, the cat's training us successfully. I'd like to point out, very successfully. Like this morning, I got up and she's chewing on the collar that we take off at night. And I'm like, no, don't chew on that. And as soon as I get up, she gets this like, gotcha, and dives into the bathroom for food. And I'm like, I am losing this fight. I am not winning against a 2 brain-celled cat, and both brain cells are fighting for third place.
Oh boy. Well, hopefully you'll be able to catch up on the sleep. I tell you, we got some great comments a couple of weeks ago when Shawn, you were talking about the Epson Fast Photo 680W. We've given that a lot of time, and I was going to post the video, and I haven't done that yet of the scans that you were doing. You're still working on that project, right?
So the backlog. This is great, right? The backlog of photos that I had from the project I started in 2019, which was all of my grandparents' films, 35 millimeter slides, loose 4x6, whatever. That's done.
Oh, great. That's cool. Right.
Because in the time that I got that scanner, and I just putting a couple out, maybe an hour or two a day into it, I blew through probably 2,800 photos.
Nice. That's good.
And got them in and organized and upgraded and uploaded to the cloud and onto my SAN storage, right? So it's like that thing saved me so much time.
Well, I one of the nice comments we got was from Mitch Goldstone, who we've had on the show a couple of times from Scan My Photos. They have a business that does that. And he appreciated the fact that, yes, we're mentioning you could do this yourself. You have the opportunity. And of course, we did mention that you could also go to a service like Mitch offers. But he appreciated the fact that you're talking about the importance of preserving memories. We've seen what happened in Hawaii. We've seen what happened in Los Angeles and Pasadena with floods now that people are concerned with. Some of these images could be lost forever, where there's maybe no negatives in a disaster, and you don't want that to happen. So he appreciated the aspect of you saving these images for your family. You actually have gone another step where, and somebody listening may think, well, I've got a scanner. I've already scanned all my photos. You've got those 8mm or super 8mm reels of film. Have you taken the steps to get those done? And again, Mitch and his company could do that, but you actually let me know that there is a way you could do this yourselves as well.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the show before because this was part of that project I started back in 2019. My mom, my aunt, my uncle pitched in a couple $100 to get me a step-by-step film scanner,
right.
8mm, super 8mm film scanners called a Wolverine Data Film to Digital Movie Maker Pro.
Okay.
You can buy it on Amazon, B&H Photo, et cetera, et cetera. They make a couple cheaper versions. I would avoid getting the cheaper ones. If you're looking to do this, I would spend the $400 to get it. I will recommend that this is the lowest tier you're going to get at a consumer level, because the next step starts adding commas to the price.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So you start getting into a little bit more of the bottom end of the professional level. So this is kind of the happy medium, and it's relatively easy to set up, but there's a lot of prep work involved, right? So I scanned, I don't even know. I scanned so many films from my grandfather, my mom's side, my maternal grandparents.
What years are you talking about?
Oh, so late 40s, so 49 to 80s.
Right.
So I mean, there was stuff ranging from when my grandfather served in the Navy in the late 40s into the 50s. Film of my mom's first birthday. So the early 50s.
Now, these would all be silent. They wouldn't be
correct. Yeah, there's no audio recordings that went along with these. No, they didn't do the whole it's all silent. So, but what I like about it is, and you came across a lot of in my research on trying to find a scanner, you came across a lot that would just pull the slides through and just kind of videotape them as they went through, right?
Right.
This actually has a stepper motor in it that steps through every single frame. It catches the sprocket, advances it one frame, takes an image, advances it, takes an image all the way through until you stop it. So what that allows it to do is then it compiles it at 24 frames per second, which is film speed, to play back for the human eye, and it generates an MP4 file for you right off the machine. So I can then take that and put it right into a Final Cut Pro, Premiere, Davinci Resolve, et cetera, et cetera. So
you can put graphics in there then with some of these programs.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's up to how creative you want to get, but it's a very time-consuming process, right? And that's something I always try to remind people about this process. This is a very time-consuming process. Not a lot of people are going to sit through and do this, and that's what I'm taking out of this is I'm spending time with my family's history, seeing these come to life with the videos, the pictures, touching them, holding on to them, remembering, oh yeah, that was me when I was 6. I'm a goober, right? It's like I'm missing 4 teeth and this whole thing. So it's just a cool process. So this past week, I got in touch with my uncle who gave me my paternal grandparents' films.
Wow.
So I'm now in the process of scanning even more film. And I just scanned in this morning a 4-inch reel of film. So imagine a 4-inch reel it ended up being about 14 minutes of footage.
Wow. I remember when you would take I had a Super 8 camera, and I would take the little film out, and I would take it to the photomat or wherever I was getting it processed, and they would then give me a reel. And that reel was about 3.5 minutes is what you would get off the standard. But then if you wanted to edit and splice together, you could have one of these 5-inch reels or even 7-inch reels, from what I remember, and you would get like a longer amount of time. That would mean it would take you longer to scan, though.
Well, yeah. So this reel is definitely multiple smaller reels spliced together, right? He has the original splicer that they have with the tape. If you've ever done tape to tape or film to film splicing, which I had to do in college, it's a bear. It's a pain. Line it up, cut, tape.
Yeah.
Spin the reel. Go. Stop. Splice. Tape. Spin. Go. All right. So
I had to do that with 35. That was
it's a process, right? So it's a time consuming process, and I'm also cleaning and kind of setting it up for archive. So I'm also unspooling it and cleaning it with 99% isopropyl alcohol and a film cleaner, right? So I'm spinning it through, cleaning it with a cotton cloth, unspooling it, spinning it back. So I'm cleaning it so that when it goes through the scanner, it's not goobing up with potential mold, because emulsion is a chemical that can break down and can grow mold. So I experienced that with the first part of the project where I didn't clean. I mean, I was cleaning it, but not doing a very good job of cleaning it. And then I would go, why does this look crummy? And then I'd take the film out and it's got crumbs and so I clean the scanner every time before I load new reel of film. So it's just a pain. It's a pain, but it's totally worth it. It's just time consuming.
Now, with this Wolverine Data Film to Digital movie maker projector, this isn't the kind of projector that you would say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and play a movie. I'm going to play the movie. We'll watch it on the wall or watch it on a screen. This is mainly just for digital transfers, right?
Yeah, this is just pulling the film through, shooting light from the bottom up so that an imager can take a picture every frame, and then it gives you a file at the end.
Some of the quality looks pretty good. I know, Matt, you saw some of the finished product of one he had just finished. It was pretty clear.
It was really clear. Like, I was looking at it like, what coming of age film am I about to start watching? Like, I feel like I should be hearing, Corey Matthews coming over the voiceover, like, it was the summer of 1984.
Yep. I know when Shawn was telling us this was taken in 1981, I felt very old because that's when I was graduating from high school, or 1980 even.
I wasn't born yet.
I wasn't even born yet.
Oh man, you guys. This is great though. It's a great way to preserve that technology. Now, they don't rent the projector. You'd have to buy this from like what, B&H or something?
Yeah, you can buy it from B&H Photo, which is my go-to for pretty much anything we buy professionally. It's on Amazon. I just wouldn't trust Amazon I'm hesitant to trust Amazon for purchases these days, except for small one-off things. But
one of the big stories from today, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just and B&H Photo, they're great. But yeah, it's kind of a set and forget, right? There's some tweaks that I've made, and I've actually had to go in and repair the unit myself. So I had some issues with it, and if somebody wants my how-to step-by-step guide on how I do it, it's not how you do it in the guide. It's the reel-to-reel part of it, right? It's got an arm with you can put the reel on, and then it's supposed to spin onto the other reel, right? So it's supposed to pull,
right, to
keep tension. That's a load of crap. That system doesn't work. It's
putting it right.
It's two motors. So it's a free spinning on the feed side, and it's pulling on the receive side. That motor is not strong enough.
Okay.
So as soon as you get more than 2 feet of film, and it starts getting tight, it starts to skip. It starts to spin, and the motor starts lagging.
Right.
So what I do is it's literally sitting right at the edge of the table. So I've got the feed reel on, and I have it coming through, and I loop it through the guides, and I just let it dump off the edge of the table.
Oh, there you go.
So the weight of the gravity holding the film down is enough to keep the film tight in the carriage.
And if you have a cat, don't let your cat be lingering around.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
cat
God.
would be the cat would be all over that. But it looks. I'll send a picture. It's a big nest of film. Like, I mean, this is, I don't know how much 14 minutes of film. It's
Yeah, that's
1,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
50
film.
I think 50 feet, if I remember correctly, was on the small reels, and that's where you got 3.5 minutes. So that kind of tells you.
But it's a lot of film. And like I said, I've been cleaning them, so I've been a lot of spooling. A lot of spooling.
You know what
But-
I have on now? It might be 16 millimeter, and I don't know if Wolverine makes a 16 millimeter film, to digital, but I have the original trailer for Star Wars before it ever hit theaters.
What?
Yeah, I on 16 millimeter, and it has a different soundtrack. The visual effects aren't put in yet, where they're firing the blasters and the lasers. I mean, it was pretty good. I bought it at a science fiction convention back in probably 1977, 78. I got a script for Star Wars, where it had Biggs and the different characters that maybe didn't make it fully into the big film. But either way, that 60 millimeter trailer, I still have, and the narration and the music was terrible. It wasn't even the music that, John Williams' music. It was some classical score. But I would love to find a way to get that also transferred so that, I would say, okay, I have it. It's probably out there on YouTube anyways, but still it would be cool to see.
Well, one of my favorite projects was the 4K remasters. I don't know if
Right.
any of you have gone through the process of trying to find those and download them. They're incredible, by the way. It's a hot topic, so I'm not going to discuss how to find those or where to get them on here.
Is this
But
Star Wars?
It's the original trilogy. It's
Right.
it's called Project Night, whatever year they were made, 1983 4K or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody got a hold of original 35, whatever the 35 millimeters
Oh,
original
wow.
print, and remastered it in 4K. And it's incredible to see the difference,
Right.
because it's all pre special editions. So it's
Right.
all the original film release.
Right.
So if you're a huge Star Wars nut, you can just Google it. You'll find it. Go down the rabbit hole if you want. Project
It's
4K.
Project 4K 77.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to look for that one. Yeah, I used to love collecting movie trailers. I had that one. I had the car. Do you remember the one with James Brolin? And the car was like a crazy looking car. Had the trailer.
You're like a few decades behind us,
Yeah.
TD. You got to bring it a few decades forward.
Oh boy, yeah. Young Frankenstein. You ever heard of that one? I get
No,
that
that's a great movie.
one. Yeah. I had that one.
Roll, Lindsay. Hey.
Actually, with the passing,
Igor.
not that long ago of Gene Hackman too, you have to think about that scene in Young Frankenstein with him and Peter Boyle as Frankenstein, and he plays a blind man trying to light a cigar, pour coffee, and just completely terrorizing poor Frankenstein.
Where are you gonna go? I was gonna make espresso.
Yes,
remember
Young Frankenstein is such a great movie.
Yeah.
It is such a classic. It really, anything Mel Brooks has done is just timelessly bulletproof. And I saw there's an interview where they were like, "What movie did you make that you could never remake today?" And they barely got the question out before it was like Blazing Saddles.
Yep.
He was like,
Absolutely.
"There's no way I could remake that today. Not a chance."
I was really jazzed many, many, many years ago when we were doing the show, and I don't know if this happens in Palm Springs or it was in Tucson when we first got here, but Burton Gilliam, who was in Blazing Saddles, did the voice work of a character in a game called Redneck Rampage, and got him on the show to talk about being a voice in a very popular video game. When we got a chance to touch on Blazing Saddles and all that, it's just one of those crazy characters. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. All right.
Y'all got any dimes?
Yeah. More beans,
Oh,
Mr.
it's so good.
Tiger.
Yeah.
I'd
so
say
good.
you boys have had enough.
All right. Speaking of filmmaking, I had a filmmaker over the other day to the house. One of the producers of a documentary called Ugly Little Monkeys, and it's a true story. And sadly it's a true story. But we were talking about filmmaking and editing over the years, and he told me about using this program called Davinci Resolve. And while him and I both came from that same, he used Final Cut for a long time, got to a certain point in Final Cut, and he said, I'm not using this anymore. And I said, I kind of went through the same thing. Then I used Vegas for a little while from Sony. Then I used, Adobe Premiere Pro. I like doing that. He said he liked using Premiere Pro, but he found that with the new version of Premiere Pro, he's just not happy with it and said DaVinci Resolve is a completely fantastic program. And I told him I've never really used it. I think I have I think I have a copy when I got my A10 Mini, but I'm not sure. What do you think about this, Shawn? Have you had any thoughts about DaVinci Resolve?
If you are a editor, you're already using it.
Okay.
You're using there's three softwares you're using that you should know how to use as a professional video editor. Final Cut Pro, Adobe Premiere, and DaVinci Resolve. Those are the top three. There's
Right.
some other ones in there that they work just as good, but they cost money. It's a whole thing. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things about Premiere Pro, it can be pretty pricey.
Well, it's a SaaS now, right?
Yeah.
Software as a service. Like that's the way Adobe went, right? So you're stuck with the constant updates. If you have auto updates on, now you're screwed because your project is 2024 and now you're in project 2025, the whole thing. We're dealing with that at work because we're an Adobe house at Notre Dame. DaVinci Resolve has been a huge disruptor in the nonlinear editing world, right? If you go back a decade, even maybe a little bit more, you had Final Cut 7, Final Cut Studio. You had Avid, you had Adobe Premiere,
Avid, yeah,
and you had Lightworks, a couple other Sony Vegas, Edius, a couple other ones in there. And then when Final Cut 10 came out, a lot of people abandoned ship because
Right.
it was such a drastic shift. A lot of people fled and they went to the PC market. So Adobe pushed out a Mac version of Premiere because Adobe used to only be PC version. I think back even up until like 2008, 2009, I'd have to go back in the history of that. But then you had Blackmagic Design said, well, we've got our coloring suite called DaVinci Resolve. Well, let's make it into it's a kind of a nonlinear editor. And then they kind of tweaked it and made it into a nonlinear editor. And it competes.
Yeah.
It's right up there. It's free. That's the biggest one, right?
Well, if you want the full suite, apparently,
Right.
but it's still less expensive than the others.
So the free version, it's has an extensive list of features, right? But it includes their advanced coloring correction. That's probably the biggest part of it, right? A lot of people would take their films out of Premiere or out of Final Cut, export the XMLs, bring them into Resolve just to color correct them and color grade them, and then put them back in for finishing. There is a studio version of Resolve.
Mhm.
It adds a handful of features, advanced noise reduction, higher resolutions and stuff. I don't know what the resolution limit is, but it's probably like 2K, I'd imagine. But yeah, it's by far probably the best color grading, built-in color grading you can do with professional software.
Now, to get a copy of this, it would be a matter of going to Blackmagic Design. They're the people who put this one out, and then you would be able to download the software and see, maybe learn how to edit. I mean, that's
And I mean, a lot of people caught on to this because Blackmagic as a whole, you can kind of live in a Blackmagic ecosystem, right? If you're shooting on their Blackmagic Ursas, their studio cameras, et cetera, they now have their own RAW format, Blackmagic RAW, which is native into DaVinci Resolve. So just working in their RAW format and their software just makes things a lot easier. But I've used it. I'm not by any means a professional on it, but I know what it can and can't do. But if you want a free, great software to edit movies on, this is it. Now it's not going to run on your rinky-dink laptop with 8 gigs of RAM and an i3 Core 2 Duo or something, right? You need something a little substantial with a dedicated GPU, probably 16 gigs of more RAM, a current-ish gen processor, maybe 5 or 6 years old, you'd be fine. But
and SSD or M2.
Oh yeah, if you're running spinny drives, good luck. I'm not even going to talk to you. If you're still running 7,200 RPM drives at this point, go back to Final Cut Studio, like Final Cut 6. Like go away.
I've tried editing with those before. All right, listen, we got to take a quick break. We come back. We have listener questions, other stuff that's been announced as well that we'll tell you about with more. You can also drop us a question anytime. techguys@techtalkradio.com. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeird.
And I'm Matt Jones. We'll be right back. So I know, like, kind of at the end of that, we were touching a little bit on hard drives for some things. And there's a great listener question kind of in that vein from Albert from Tucson. A few weeks ago, I was listening to the program and you were talking about how the different operating systems have changed. One of the things they have very much changed, Albert. You are correct. One of the things I remember doing often on the old computer was running something called defragment. I don't see that anymore and wondered if it's still something people do. Thank Christ, no, we don't. So let me give you a
Can you
quick
explain what defragment was for people who they've heard the term?
So back on the old spinny drives, you basically you had a little spindle on it going back and forth on these platters, reading the bits of data that were in there. And over time, as you would write stuff, delete stuff, move stuff, those little bits of data started being on different locations in the platter. They get spread out, and it would increase your load times, your transfer times, because it'd have to go find each one of those individual little spots. The data was fragmented. Defragmenting was the unholy long process. And back when the first time I defragmented, you would put a disk in and boot to it so it would defragment, and it would find every one of and Shawn just put it up on his screen, and I'm having flashbacks, not good ones. And it would find all those little sectors and basically kind of like clump everything back to where it was supposed to be. And it would make your computer run better. It would make it healthier. But good Christ almighty, it could take you hours. It could take you days, depending on how much data you had. And there was nothing worse than being a kid being like, I'm going to go home and play a computer game. It's defragmenting. Well, definitely not doing that today.
Oh, and that was one of the things you couldn't walk away from it. You just have to stare at it and just look at it and watch it.
And feel your soul slowly crush.
So I had somebody explain it in the most simplest of terms to me one time, what exactly defragging does, right? Okay, right. Imagine you collected all of your mail from the last year, kept it in the original envelopes, and then you decided to open all those envelopes and throw everything across the room.
Yeah.
Okay, now all your mail is spread out. Now go through the process of putting all that mail back where it belongs.
Right. Now, when
that made the most sense to me.
And as painful as that sounds, defragging was equally as painful.
Correct.
Here's one. Now, when I taught a night class of computer technology to people would come to the adult school, and I would teach them all about tech, and that's when defragmenting was a thing. But I kind of compared it to having a drawer full of socks. But each sock is different. You have a pair, and then you split them up, but everything's different. You don't have 2 white socks, you have 2 red socks, 3 blue socks. They're all different. You have to try and put them together, and that's basically what it was doing. The problem is, in Albert's question, defragment. What happened to it? Is it something that's not done anymore?
It is not done anymore. So defragmenting went away with spinny drives. There's a very short, not as short as I would have liked, but there was a small overlap period where people would defragment a solid state drive, an SSD. And defragging an SSD will drastically decrease the lifespan of it. what is done with these new solid state drives, the M.2 NVMe drives, is called trimming. And your computer, thank God, automatically does it now. It is built, I'm pretty sure it was since, I want to say it was either Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. They basically built it in that it is just an automated task that the computer runs by itself. You don't have to go in and kick it off and do it. And it trims and basically says like, hey, these are here, these are here, these are here. And because the difference being in a spinny drive, it had to make that change of moving that little piece of magnetic resonance and write to another physical location on the spinny drive. There are no real true physical locations in a solid state drive. It's just permanently stored electric memory. So
when you have a problem too on a big file, somebody had told me if you had big files, because let's face it, we're working with bigger files now. You got more storage, bigger files, video files, audio files, photo files that are raw. If it moves something, it could actually break the file.
It can.
Yeah.
It could break and corrupt the file. So there actually were some risks to defragmenting, but it was one of those darned if you do, darned if you don't. You had to do it. And I remember vividly, I had finally this was such it was like one of the first person shooter games I ever played. It was Nerf Arena Blast.
Oh, wow.
And it was basically like a reskinned Unreal tournament for kids. Like no blood, Nerf guns. But I remember like I gotten so far and I'd finally beat this one stage that like I had been struggling with, and we defragged the computer and my save file was corrupted.
Oh man. Yeah. If you ran a lot of zips or archived folders, that also would happen to them too. They keep and those could be corrupted easier than others. And some people have still never been able to get into these files that they may have stored a lot of stuff in and then deleted the originals, and then thus it's gone.
I deleted the originals. All right. Then I defragmented my hard drive. You can stop there. I know how this tragedy ends. Just
Now, when it comes to disk utilities, though, at the time, that was probably a very useful disk utility. I know Shawn recently took a look at the new Windows 11 utility program. Did you get a chance to run that and look more into it?
No, I've had no need. So I looked at it, said, well, if I need it, I'll use it. But I never
Was
went
it like
as
PC
far.
disk tools or something like that?
so I actually have the native one built into Windows 11 open right now. If you go in and type like disk or defrag, it will pull up defragment and optimize drives, because there are some poor souls out there still running spinny drives. So we still have to have and I don't mean that economically. I feel for your souls.
Yeah.
But it still has a built-in defrag utility. But if you have solid states, it is the optimized drives. And you'll look at the current status, and like I'm looking at my C drive and it says, okay, 1 day since last retrim. I have not rebooted my computer since like a little bit over a day ago. So it did it on the reboot. It trimmed the drives. Now I can always go in there and be like, hey, I could click right now and be like, optimize. But the scheduled optimization, drives are being analyzed on a scheduled cadence and optimized as needed, frequency weekly. And you kind of want to leave that as is, in my opinion. Like you don't want to get overzealous with that. Like a week is fine. And if you're moving a ton of files and everything around, just go in there and take a look. You can click the analyze button, be like, do I have a problem? Do I need to retrim it right now? But don't run a defrag on an SSD. You will chop a large chunk of the lifespan off.
All right. That's good advice. So basically telling Albert, don't worry about it.
If you don't have a spinny drive, don't worry about it. Those days are gone. They can't hurt you anymore. We're okay.
They won't hurt you anymore. They'll be kind. All right, here's one from Roger. I thought this was a pretty good one, and this could be a good one for Shawn to help with as well. Is there a huge learning curve to switching to the Apple platform? Windows 11 seems like it won't work on my computer. That's a lot of people finding that one out, and thought maybe now would be the time to switch. What are some considerations from Roger in Saborita?
This is a loaded question, right? Because I've been such a dual user for so long. I don't know what it would be like to jump in feet
Yeah.
first. I mean, I don't. I would love to tell them there's no learning curve, but I've been using Mac OS since, I don't know, for a long time. So it is a different UI. It is a different system, right? It is fundamentally different in terms of how you access your files, where things live, how you open programs, how you download programs, how you install programs, how you function with the internet is different unless you like from the get-go, right? So you can download Chrome and you can have your experience be the same. But if you're not familiar, if you don't know what Safari is, you might be up the creek a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If you've never heard of Safari before, might be a little intimidating. It's not, the South African trip to see the animals, right? It's the web browser that Mac comes with.
Yeah.
So if you are an iPhone user or an iPad user, you will have an easier go at getting accustomed or tuned to Mac OS.
But if you've never used those before,
But if you've never used it before, you're going to have a learning curve and you are going to get frustrated. And one thing that I've learned about the world as it is right now, people do not have patience for technology.
No.
So, when Caitlin's parents went to go get their new laptop, right? They straight up told me, no Mac OS. We're not doing it.
No.
Because I would have tried to push them onto like an M2 Mac Air, something a little bit more streamlined. Because then for the price of what you're paying for a decent laptop, you could potentially get 2 MacBook Airs, and then they could have each of their own. But they weren't interested in doing Mac OS at all. Because they're Android users. They've never used Mac OS. My father-in-law said straight up, I don't want to learn a new operating system.
Well, if somebody's thinking about this and they're saying, well, my Windows 11 computer is or Windows 10 is not going to be able to update to Windows 11, or maybe they're still on 7 or something else. Maybe they shouldn't invest in a full-on MacBook or, the big Mac system. Maybe get a Mac, the basic Mac, and just to learn it if they want to experience that. Or is there any way for them to really kind of go through that?
So there actually is, and this is I'm sorry to jump in on this one, but I actually used to be a Mac genius working at an Apple store in Virginia. And one of the things that has kind of fallen by the wayside, at least the last time I was in there, of telling people when they would go into that store, into an Apple store to buy a Mac, one of the questions we used to ask was, hey, is this going to be your first Apple device, or is this your first Mac computer? And if they were like, yes, it is, Apple stores offer free classes. You just have to go to the store. Like each store has their own little website. You'll go to apple.com, go through, find your store. Like for me, probably the closest would be like down at Cherry Creek Mall or something. But I wanted to look and see if this was still something they offered, and it is. So they actually have a getting started Mac class that runs for an hour. And its description is learn the essentials to get the most out of your Mac. We'll start with settings and show you how to navigate everyday features with ease. Then you'll explore how to customize your Mac so you can work and create the way you want. We'll even share our favorite shortcuts for staying organized and fun ways to search with Siri. And then for accessibility, for sessions with amplified sound, hearing loop technology is available on request. Each store offers these. I think they've kind of reorganized the job titles, but it used to be, Mac Genius, you were the person behind the Genius Bar repairing and doing technical support. Creatives were equivalent in technical capability, but theirs was all the software side. They had specialized people in Final Cut, in GarageBand, in all those programs, and you could register for a class and they could walk you through, beginner, intermediate, advanced. Right. And then you also had the specialists, which were, your general sales folk. But you can come in, you register for the class, you bring your device, you'll sit down, and they will have a big old screen there walking you through everything so you can do it on yours. You can ask questions, go through it. It is the most underrated but beneficial feature that Apple stores offer, because these classes aren't just for Mac. They have getting started with Apple Watch, iPad, iPhone. They really want you, like, if you're going to spend that amount of money, they don't want you to hate it. So if you're looking to cut over to the new OS, usually if you take that class, it helps a lot. We've also had huge strides in like YouTube and shows that and on-demand things that can help you there. But in general, what I saw at my time at the store for people cutting over was it took about 2 weeks to get comfortable with the basics on your own, to kind of get that second nature feel down. And Shawn's entirely right. It is an entirely different operating system at its core. The way it handles programs is vastly different than the way Windows handles programs. Like, to go a little technical, Mac is built off of Unix, and Unix treats everything like a file. Apps are a file. A printer is a file. A hard drive is referenced as a file. Everything is technically a file.
Wow. All right.
Windows decide to be like, we're going to make this a device. We're going to make this a folder. We're going to make this easier. And at the end of the day, we're like, you didn't make anything easier. You just made everything worse.
Well, our nearest Apple store is La Encantada for those here. Also, I want to recommend there are Apple groups. You may find, you have an Apple user group in your community. I know that Green Valley Recreation, we're in Green Valley. They may have an Apple users group. They're very helpful. And if you go in there and you just, hey, I'm new, I just want to check it out, they'll let you come to a meeting. You just want to, look them up online and be able to get the information on that. So that's
also the most understated resource for this that I, especially in today's day and age, need your support as well. Your local library.
There you go.
If
Perfect.
you go to your local library and you ask, there might be somebody who's free who will sit and help you with it, or they might have a class that you can go and participate for free with your free library card. Libraries are vastly underrated for the services that they offer. And I know 2 of the ones near me do offer beginner to intermediate tech classes, not just like grandma needs to learn her computer, but like, hey, we'll teach you some of the basics of IT so you can see if that's something you like for any age group. So also check out your local library and see if they offer something.
All right, we're going to take another break. We come back. The Gaming Hall of Fame, the Museum of Gaming, has put together its list of the inductees for the best games ever. There'll be 3, I guess, that'll be inducted. We'll go over to the list and find out which ones you think should be in the Hall of Fame coming up with Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeerd.
And I'm Matt Jones. Feel free to find us on Facebook at facebook.com/techtalkers. We'll be right back.
The year is 1998. You've got 4 friends, a cardboard box cut in 2 so you quad the TV, and
Right.
you're playing slappers only on GoldenEye.
Oh, is Odd Job? Are we not allowing Odd Job because that's a
Can't
cheat?
allow Odd Job because his head's too small. That was a cheat.
And you started with 4 friends. You might not have ended being friends.
So I
yeah.
brought that up because in the break we were talking about the National Museum of Play's inductees, the nominees for Hall of Fame video games.
Yeah, they do this every year. They put out and they come up with 3 out of a list of a bunch of games to see which one should be in the Hall of Fame. And I don't know, this list is kind of a little wacky.
It's kind of all over the place, but the one I was talking about was the Nintendo 64 GoldenEye 007. By far one of the best multiplayer games you could ever play in the history of multiplayer games.
Did that ever come out ported to anything else?
Oh, it's on the Switch.
Oh, it is?
It's on the Xbox.
Yeah, it ported to the Xbox. It's on the Switch. If you have Nintendo Online, go to their website, buy the wireless 64 controllers, get 4 friends, get 3 friends plus yourself, and play the ever living crap out of that game because it is amazing.
Is
Now,
it Pierce Brosnan, right? Is
Yeah.
that the James Bond? Yeah.
that was his first one. And do you know the craziest thing about GoldenEye, which was for the long time the gold standard of shooters? The game developers who made GoldenEye had never made a video game beforehand. And
What?
the reason why that, like, there's so many like video games from movies that are just hot steaming garbage, and this was such a gem because they looked at the movie and they were like, okay, we cannot screw this up, so we are going to go scene by scene and make that level by level. So they basically just like ported the movie into a game, and it was for a first outing, home run, grand slam, cleared the bases.
And there was it was rumored that they weren't even going to include the multiplayer in the original.
Yes.
So they added that in last minute as like a, well, let's just do it and see what happens. And it's by far one of the most incredible multiplayer games I've ever played.
So you believe this one should be a member of the
100%.
Hall of Fame?
Now I'm going to quickly just go through the list, right? Age of
Okay.
Empires, solid game.
Yeah.
Angry Birds, anybody that's played Angry Birds has had fun with that.
Yeah.
Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, solid game.
That's
Atari
good.
Defender, never played it, but it sounds good. Frogger, everybody knows the leapfrogging game where you get hit by traffic. GoldenEye, the Golden Tee handheld, never played
That
it,
was
but
that was a golf game, right?
it's a golf game. I mean, who hasn't played, at least people my age or Andy's age, right? In the bar, the Golden Tee,
Oh yeah. Yep.
right? Spending $6 on 4 holes of golf.
I remember the arcade one. There was a big round ball,
Mhm.
and you'd have to hit it really fast to
Mhm.
take your golf shot. And
Yep. Harvest Moon, which this one, based on the picture, looks like the Super Nintendo version instead of the 64 version. The 64 version is one of the games I can clearly remember being the first game I ever fell asleep playing. Mattel Football Handheld, which I believe Matt said in the break he had one of these.
I did.
Oh my
I
God.
that handheld was vastly older than I was.
yeah, well, that was 1977 that came out. I remember that. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you get into the NBA 2K series, which I'm not a basketball fan, but I've been told that the NBA 2K series is just awesome. Another one of my favorite multiplayer games, Quake.
Oh
Which is
yeah.
Which is just, I feel like that's kind of was a standard for multiplayer for computer players back in the day.
Was that id Software that had put that one out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quake put out id, and Quake and Unreal Tournament were some of the first games that actually basically gave birth to what we now consider the Electronic Sports League.
Oh, yeah.
They were some of the first like actual had competitions, get money, had tournaments, professional players. Like that one really changed the game.
Yeah, for sure. And they're still fun. And then the last one on the list, and because I grew up when these came out and I had one, I probably still have it somewhere in my house. Tamagotchis.
Oh, was it Tamaguchi or Gachi?
Gotcha.
Gachi,
Tamagotchi. All right.
But it was the little pet you had to keep alive. You had to feed it and stuff. And if you had it at school and they got caught with it, they would take it away from you and they would give it back to you the next day and your pet would be dead and you'd feel sad. Yeah. So I don't know that from
I
personal
think
reference.
I had a Pac-Man Tamaguchi where you had to keep the Pac-Man alive. Yeah.
And it
They had
wasn't
all sorts of branding on those.
because the big three, it was Tamagotchis, Nanopets, and Digimon.
Digimon. Yeah.
Those were the big three. And Digimon was different from them all because you could click them together and make them fight.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
And a couple of years back, they actually re-released those. And Lee and I were at GameStop and saw them and just like looked at each other and had one of those immediate silent conversations of like, are we doing this? Oh, we're doing this. And we still have our new Digimon that will occasionally like replace the battery and be like, all right, you've got 1 week and then we'll see what's what.
Well, only 3 can be inducted. Definitely GoldenEye, 007. What else? I think Quake should be part of that. I don't know.
I think it's going to be, you got to look at it not just from like, okay, I enjoyed these games, but from like a culture phenomenon, right? Tamagotchis took over everything. Everybody had one that it's like, I feel like Tamagotchi will go in just
Right.
from the vast number of how popular they were. And then Angry Birds, just because it was like one of the first mobile games that really took off. And
Everybody played them.
it spawned a whole franchise. Everybody played it.
A movie.
Games
And
at
so
Top Golf now.
Yeah. So I think it'll be Angry Birds, Tamagotchi, and probably Goldeneye.
I'm gonna have to form the dissenting opinion here.
All right.
Age of Empires changed what a real-time strategy game could be.
True.
They came out in 97, and it's the main competitor at that time to Age of Empires was the Command and Conquer series. And I went back recently and replayed CNC Remastered, and it's all situational. Like, okay, you build your couple of guys, go do this. Hopefully they survive. Go take on the forces of Nod, because it was the Brotherhood of Nod and the GDI, the Global Defense Initiative. I remember that. But Age of Empires 1, maybe not, might not make it. Age of Empires 2 has been the gold standard, the platinum level of what a real-time strategy game could be. And the next one, I think, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I remember queuing up outside of my GameStop back when we did midnight releases and you can just have it automatically downloaded to your Xbox. I remember queuing up outside of my local GameStop to get that. And that game, it came out when I was in college, and it took over every single dorm that I could conceivably go into.
It certainly did not disappoint.
It changed first-person shooters. The Call of Duty control mapping is now what every single shooter game that comes out uses. Sure. That control mapping is now the golden default. And Modern Warfare 4, because that was the first one where they brought it to the modern age. Previously to that, it was all World War II. And that was the first time where it's like, you don't need health packs. You just need to get to cover for a minute. And spawned now one of the greatest shooter franchises in the history of games. And then, honestly, I'm going to revise it. I'm going to say Modern Warfare, GoldenEye, and probably Frogger.
Frogger. You remember the Seinfeld episode where George had to replicate the Frogger game?
I do remember that one.
Yes.
And he's like, and then they did the aerial view of it.
Yes.
But I mean, Frogger was a cultural revolution, and there were so many different versions of it. I remember playing it on the Atari, and like that one, like you got hit by the car and it wasn't just a frog splat. It was a frog splat, and a little ambulance pulled up and loaded the Frogger into it and drove away. That's right. I was like, I don't know what you're going to do for this frog. He's gone from 3D to 2D, but.
All right, listen, we got to take another quick break, but those are the ones you could see the list yourself by going to museumofplay.org. Scroll down, you'll see the inductees, and you'll see the past ones as well. I am hoping that Doom is in there, because if you got Quake in there, Doom has to be in there somewhere.
I think Doom might be earlier. I'm going back to the list. I think Doom's in there.
Yeah, it's got to be. All right, we'll be back with more of Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeird.
And I'm Matt Jones. Feel free to shoot us a message on X at TechtalkRadio. So we were just talking about inductees for the Video Game Hall of Fame. And as today is March 10th, Happy Mario Day.
That's the day we're recording, yes.
I have to ask you guys, and I will give mine first if you want. What is either your favorite game of all time or the game that had the biggest impact on your life? And while I give you a minute to think about that, mine it's actually a tie. And one of them is very divisive inside of a community.
Okay.
The first one is an old PS1 game called The Legend of Dragoon. And it was the game that actually taught me that a game can truly tell a story with so much depth and emotion. And I see Shawn pumping his fist in the air, so I'm not alone in this. That game sucked me into RPGs for the rest of my life. And the game I played not too long after that, this is the divisive one, still my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time, Final Fantasy VIII.
All right. I've heard good things about that one too. Oh, boy.
So, Matt, mentioned one of it's not my favorite RPG, but it was my brother's favorite, and he actually has the 3-colored disc set.
I still have mine.
Which was it's not easy to come across now. But my brother played that more than I did, but that game is incredible. It's so good. So shortly thereafter, in that same time frame, there was a JRPG that came out called Suikoden.
Oh,
that
man.
that is by far my favorite JRPG of all time. Suikoden 2 is also very good. I just downloaded it last night. They remastered it and released it this past week.
Oh wow!
So my brother literally sent me a Discord message last night saying, "Hey, just sent me a link with this remat." I immediately went and downloaded it on the Switch right now. It plays so good on a handheld. Like, I know I have it on a PS1. I've played through it multiple times. I can go back to my original save files, which are still on the memory card. But Suikoden and Suikoden 2 are definitely my top 2 like JRPGs of all time.
All right, for me, I used to go to the arcades, so I remember playing games like Frogger, Defender, some of those games, Missile Command, which was last. So the stand-up arcades. But my first game on a computer was on an Apple IIe called Emon Adventure.
Oh my God, I've played that.
It was a text adventure. That was my first game. It had no graphics in it. You were basically typing, move left, go west, go. You run into this, and what do you do? It was based on your response and based on how you were. So to me, that would be an influential game that I certainly remember. And it's not as exciting as yours, but it was a lot of fun. Emon Adventure. All right, that wraps up this week's show. We'd love to hear what yours are and the reason. Drop us a line, techguys@techtalkradio.com. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Shawn DeWeird.
And I'm Matt Jones. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week.